How do you choose customer success metrics during a product pivot? And if you're a manager, how do you choose the metrics to change the comp plans for your team? These are all not very easy questions, especially when everything is in a state of flux. Hi, my name is Shankar Sahai, and this is part 3 of a 3-part series on the impact of pivot and customer success. I have over 15 years of experience working as a customer success manager, trainer, and consultant. Here we go. In part 1, we talked about what works and what does not work for customer success during times of a pivot. And we also talked about using a shared vision of the customer success function 2 to 5 years down the road as a tool that you can use to guide your actions. In part 2, we reviewed 4 different techniques that can be used as a way to navigating your way during a pivot. Today, we're going to turn our attention to metrics and dashboards, like I said before. Let's have this discussion in 2 parts. Part 1, metrics that are being used for the current or legacy product and the fact that they're working for the most part because it's there, and you can continue to use these metrics during the pivot and maybe even after. So the gist here is don't fix something that ain't broke. So that's kind of like the first thing I wanted to get out of the way. Part 2 of this discussion is going to focus on the metrics that can be used for the post-pivot world that you are living in most likely, or probably will be soon. Metrics can be divided into 3 categories. One category of pivot is activity-based. These are pivots that are these are metrics which are based on counts, such as count of tickets, count of training sessions, count of conversations or calls, things of that nature. And because these are inherently counts, they only have a meaning when you kind of trend them on a trend line. And then you can look at the trend line. Is it going up? Is it steady? Is it falling? And you can, get to the root cause of these various types of phenomenon that you might observe. But during a pivot, these types of metrics don't work. And the reason is really simple. Pivot is an inflection point when you think about it. And this inflection point or pivot is reflected in these trend lines as well. So if you're going to look at the count of tickets over pre-pivot, pivot, post-pivot, chances are the ticket shot up through the roof. Now, which parts of this was because of product, deployment? It's not going to be very useful for you. So you don't really want to focus too much on the activity count-based metrics. The second type of metrics that are commonly used in customer success function are metrics that are financial or have dollar amounts or some currency amounts associated with them. And some of these most popular ones are customer retention cost or net dollar retention or NRR as sometimes called, or monthly retention rates and things of that nature, all kind of driven from the business side of things with some dollar amount or some currency amount. And the reason these don't work well during a pivot is actually very simple. It's because the business teams and the sales teams are trying to figure out what is the pricing model, how much is the cost structure for supporting a product that is in flux versus a steady state product, how much development costs are being attributed to the various buckets. So everything around this is changing. If you use this, you're going to have to use numbers that nobody really feels comfortable with. Nobody feels that they can justify. And if you don't feel that these numbers can be defended, and that means that it's going to be much harder for the customer success managers themselves to believe in them. The third set of metrics are related to customer sentiment. These are kind of metrics with most commonly kind of like CSAT or NPS and things of that nature. You do a survey after maybe a project closure or something like that, and you get some feedback from a customer, and and customer can give you good rating, bad rating, ugly rating, it doesn't matter. But the point is that whatever feedback you get back, you have a customer that you can talk to. You can try and understand the context of what drove that rating. And that, in my opinion, is pure gold. Because in a time when everything is changing, just getting numbers or metrics is not good enough. You need to understand what is the context behind this metric or this score, this rating. Maybe the customer CSM was doing something phenomenally good. Do you want to know what was it that they were doing that was so good? Or vice versa, something is really bad and you want to make sure that you as a CSM or your team doesn't continue to do that. So I recommend the customer sentiment metrics as the way to go during a pivot. And one last note I would like to leave here for the managers and leadership of the CSM teams. You can have basically two situations that you can find yourself in. You can have either the entire team working on the old product or legacy product and the new product at the same time. And this is going to be easier to hire maybe, but it's going to be a lot harder for you to come up with the right set of comp plans and right set of motivations, because it will have its own challenges. And then the second situation that you can find yourself in where you have kind of a different set of CSMs working the high legacy product, where everything is baked, fully baked. You have a set of processes, you have a set of documents, everything is there. And then you have another team struggling to figure out how to support new customers on the new products. And maybe easier to hire because there's more excitement, new technology, new product suite, and everything else. But coming as a manager, for you to motivate this team is going to be a lot harder, and so is trying to come up with a fair and balanced comp plans. That is all I have for today. Would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment about metrics that might have worked for you or might not have worked for you. Would love to hear both the cases. And links to 2 previous parts are going to be in the description below. And thank you, and I'll see you again soon.